about this content is Dacxi is a fintech crypto exchange, and we're very aware that there is increasing interest from the accountant and IFA community. And they're often being asked about crypto assets, and unfortunately the IFA and accountant community often aren't hugely knowledgeable. And of course, since relatively recently, there has been a massive lack of regulatory framework. And of course, it's not possible for them to comment. So as crypto is becoming more mainstream, obviously there's a concern if they don't learn more about it, they'll be somewhat left behind. So hopefully today's presentation should give you some answers to some of your questions. So a quick disclaimer, the information I'm going to give you over the course of this presentation does not constitute investment advice, financial advice or trading advice. Rather, it's just education and inspiration in the crypto space. So a massive welcome to Dacxi. Dacxi, as I say, is a crypto exchange. And this is a little front shot from our website. We attempt to make crypto easy to understand. Of course, quite a complex topic. If you end up looking at Google, you'll disappear down a black hole of conflicting information fairly quickly. So we really seek to be the leading business in terms of education. It's always free. It's available online in many formats, whether you prefer listening live or listening on Listening Again, or our ebooks, or our social media. Huge amounts of content that you can engage with, always free and easily available. So we are considered an authority in the space. This slide is some of the press coverage that we've had recently. We get inquiries from press pretty much every couple of days. So whether it's in fintech specialist press, crypto specialist press, or in sort of more mainstream media, we're very often asked what's going on in the industry as a whole or in crypto markets. So if you do follow us on any of our social media channels, you will see an awful lot of the content that we've put out pretty much every couple of days, whether it's stuff that we've put out there or of course stuff which we think is broadly interesting that's going on in the industry at the moment. So a quick bit of information about me. You can find me on LinkedIn. This is a little screenshot of my profile. I think I'm the only person with that name, as I'm aware, in the world. So if you put me into LinkedIn, you'll be able to find me. So a bit of background on me. I'm currently Managing Director for Dacxi in the UK and Europe, a post that I've held since the beginning of this year. But actually, it's my third business in the blockchain industry. I started off as a board advisor for a tokenization platform. It was a really exciting business to be involved in. As I left, we were actually tokenizing properties for Sotheby's, obviously quite a well-known auction and property estate agent. That was valued recently at 15.4 million. And I also retain an advisory role for a health tech blockchain business, which has recently had a valuation of 5.4 million. Before that, I was involved in capital markets technology. So I worked for a specialist tech business, which provided to tier one banks, Deutsche Bank, UBS, Citi, BNY Mellon Eagle Program, Market. So really into business across hedge funds, asset managers. And overall, my career has been spent in disruptive fintech businesses. And I also pioneered a SIP investment product, which we actually achieved about £400 million worth of sales for. So I'm very focused on what we provide to their IFA and accountant community. So if you're not linked in with me, please feel free to reach out. I've got about 4,000 followers on LinkedIn at the moment, and I put a lot of content out. So feel free to have a look. So the agenda for this session, we work a lot with IFAs and accountants, and we probably know the questions that you have and the concerns and interests that you've got. So we'll talk a lot about the regulatory environment. I think there's been a lot of bad ideas, bad exchanges, bad products in crypto. We, of course, seek to be a leading exchange, and we'll talk a lot about the regulation and the safety that exists in the industry and, of course, what you need to avoid. Why Dacxi exists, what we seek to provide, some of the businesses that we currently collaborate with. I'll give you some background on crypto, why crypto is a good idea and why now is a great time to be looking at crypto, which cryptos are reputable and how they're doing. And I'll then talk a bit about the referral program and the support that we provide to those that we work with. And I've got a guest speaker who comes from a traditional regulated financial services background. He'll talk about the journey that he's been on personally to get involved with crypto, how he's found that, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, and really just an interesting viewpoint of probably where he comes from in terms of his take on crypto. So first of all, the regulatory environment. I think it's been a huge barrier to the traditional financial services and accounting community, just trying to understand what's going on in that respect. The FCA is very clear that crypto is not a financial instrument and therefore does not fall under their remit. However, and it is a big however, it's a great time to be doing this presentation. We actually did this presentation a month or so ago. And actually, great news, last week, the FCA put out a research note on the 30th of June, entitled The Crypto Asset Consumer Research for 2020, which is a great sign to us as a business. It's a sign that the FCA is finally taking crypto seriously. You can find that publication online. It's very easily accessible. The link's at the bottom of the screen, but if you Google it, you'll be able to find it. And I've just picked out a few of the things that we as a crypto platform took out of it as takeaways. The first thing that's very key is that the rate of uptake is growing massively. It's approximately double year on year, and they estimate that about 3% of the adult UK population currently owns crypto assets. And there's been a big shift in those buyer demographics. So the biggest and fastest growing audience for that is the over 45s and the over 55s, which is the largest growth area. But it does reflect on a lot of the barriers to entry. So primarily a lack of knowledge. So people that are interested but are just finding it hard to get involved and get themselves knowledgeable. Underutilization of exchanges closer to home. So a lot of the exchanges that are out there are in weird and far-flung places. So of course not necessarily under UK regulation or jurisdiction. And lots of issues around customer protection. So understandably, people that are concerned about losing their money or being in an unsafe environment. So we'll talk a little bit about some of those themes today and how you can protect yourself in crypto. So I think interestingly, if we look at the FCA today, the regulatory environment right now today is that for crypto businesses, they are of course obliged to comply to the anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing supervision, which of course Dacxi does. And the FCA has also said that from the 10th of January next year, existing businesses need to be compliant, and also that existing businesses must register with the FCA. So to be clear, not under the FCA, but do have to comply to the AML rules and also have to make themselves known to the FCA. So our opinion as a crypto business, which has offices in the UK, we have offices in the Innovation Centre in Oxford, is that the FCA will regulate crypto shortly, and we very much welcome that. So of course there have been a lot of businesses which are not so great, so actually we very much welcome that regulatory supervision. And actually for Dacxi, we're actually embracing regulated routes, which I'll talk a little bit about in due course. So the great news is that HMRC again has put out some guidance around crypto. I'm very conscious this session is intended for accountants, so I'm certainly not here to teach you to suck eggs, but they have put out guidance both for individuals around the capital gains tax situation, and said that only in exceptional circumstances should someone be buying and selling crypto with appropriate frequency and levels of organisation, that would be taken as a financial trade, and then of course income tax will take priority over capital gains tax. So I've put the link here both for individuals and for companies, so you can find it. In terms of companies, again, there's quite a lot of guidance from HMRC on their website. So if you are an accountant and you have got clients that are involved in crypto, there is some guidance out there for you, which I think is helpful. And look, if an increasing proportion of the UK is involved, you know, if that's doubled year on year, obviously there's a certain amount of growth in that marketplace, and understandably HMRC are going to take some interest in that. So I just want to talk about Dacxi as a business. I've talked a lot about some of what's wrong with the industry, and certainly Dacxi has sought to fill a hole in the industry, and I want to just kind of loop back to some of the FCA's comments. So we've been going for a couple of years. We're headquartered in Singapore. We also have offices in the UK, in Oxford where I'm based, in Estonia, in Brazil, in New Zealand and Australia. But our real focus is that we want to be the leading digital asset exchange, which allows people to buy and hold crypto in a safe, secure and easy way. There's a great way of checking out an exchange's security. Obviously, I'm old enough to remember when telephone banking came in and online banking came in, and people were understandably very concerned about security. In terms of what goes on online, because you'll be buying your crypto and typically storing it online, you can get an independent security rating from the Mozilla Observatory, and we're rated A+, which of course is the highest rating you can get. And unfortunately, there's a few exchanges that don't quite match up to that, and certainly for a lot of the high street banks, online banking, they again don't rank anywhere near that. We often spend a lot of time putting in various high street banks, and they tend to rank anything between an F, which is dreadful, up to a B if you're lucky. So that rating is really important. And of course, for us as a business, we're looking to provide liquidity. So that means people that buy Bitcoin, Litecoin and Ethereum through our platform, they can buy and sell. So particularly, we're not a trading business. We often work with people that want to hold, but it means if for any reason they do need an exit, they're able to do so. In terms of licenses today, we are licensed in Europe, and I've just put on the screen what we're licensed for. And as I mentioned, we're fully compliant with the FCA's AML and KYC requirements. Apologies, that seems to have got a little bit corrupted as a typo there. And we're also in the process of applying for FC licenses around crowdfunding, and we do expect to shortly have a fully regulated ISA route in addition to a pension route. So watch this space. And of course, our broader plan for business right now, we're a couple of years into this, is we're fairly unique in the exchange environment, both in terms of the focus of the age of our customers. We tend to be much more working with that slightly older crowd. Many of the exchanges work for a millennial crowd, and usually we're for a slightly older crowd, typically our customers between 35 and 65 years old. And of course, we're very education focused. So I don't believe any of the other exchanges are putting out the level of content we do, or indeed providing the access to the experts and leaders that Dacxi does. So particularly in terms of the UK, which is the area that I'm in charge of, we have a UK office, and we're intending to list the business on the London Stock Exchange in the next 6 to 12 months. So exciting things going on in the UK and Ireland, which is great. So one more view of what we're doing is the Dacxi ecosystem. So one of the important things of what we're doing is that we're very focused on being a crowdfunding business. So the DAC coin, which is our community coin, is underpinned by the ecosystem that we have, which is for crowdfunding, for crowd lending. So the DAC coin is easily tradable, accurately priced, and comes with a great reputation. And the purpose of this presentation is not to talk in any great detail about that, but hopefully those of you that are watching this have some understanding of those crowd-based businesses. So it's a very well established industry in the UK and in Europe. So whether it's crowdfunding, and I've listed some of the sort of main brands in that, they tend to be peer-to-peer, which is my background, crowdfunding in equity and property, or crowd investing in digital assets. So the DAC coin will very shortly be used for a venture exchange. So it will be the community coin for doing so. And typically they tend to be separate platforms. So you would have what's typically crowd lending, crowd equity and digital are all separate. And Dacxi is the first time that those will have been bought under one roof. So I don't necessarily want to talk too much more about that today, but if you are interested in what Dacxi is doing, we have a great document called the Blue Paper that you can look into. So some of the businesses that we work with, we collaborate with a broad variety of people. We have IFAs and wealth managers that we work with today. Typically they started off by purchasing through us in their own right before getting more interesting. We have some accountants we work with. We work with private individuals that are networking businesses, which is great. We work with a number of trading businesses, whether that's FX, or they do crypto and FX, and lots of property businesses that have property investors that are either sitting on equity that isn't doing much, or are worried about what will happen to property markets in the near term and the medium term. So a broad variety of people that are coming to the table to get involved in crypto. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking about why people might be coming to the table now for crypto. So sort of why crypto is exciting right now, why crypto is exciting and why it's exciting right now. And one of the things that's quite interesting about the job I've got is I get to meet lots of people that have been involved in crypto for a number of years. And we have a little joke that if you bought crypto in 2017, you've made 1,300%, which is great, over a year. But it must have been a bit weird to come home and tell your friends, family, spouse that you bought something that no one had ever heard of. So most of the people that we work with today haven't bought crypto until now. So I just want to look at some of those reasons. So it's obviously some very strange times right now. We're just coming out of coronavirus. It's widely held that's going to cause a pretty significant recession, indeed that we are already in it. So obviously year to date for the FTSE is not so hot. We're looking at being down about 20%. And of course, interest rates on cash accounts are pretty appalling. Of course, we've got a historic low on our base rate. And this is a little screenshot that I took from one of the comparison sites for easy access, instant access savings accounts. And the best interest rate I could find was 0.75%. So obviously really dreadful news for people that are sitting on cash. And cryptocurrency has had a phenomenal time, both since coronavirus and year to date. So there are only 3 reasons why people buy crypto, and that's growth, growth, and growth. So I wanted to just look at some of those figures from year to date. So this presentation is being recorded on the 10th of July, and I took these figures at about 10 a.m. this morning. So it just gives you an idea of what's going on. So Ethereum year to date is up 93%, Bitcoin's up 27%, Litecoin's up 12%, the DAC is up 10%. And just to put that into perspective, the FTSE has lost about 20% over the same period. So for that reason, many retail investors are swapping a small amount of their cash into crypto. So look, some great figures, and just to be clear, crypto has recovered since the coronavirus really hit in the UK, faster, harder and better than traditional vanilla assets. And that's why some of the top hedge funds and asset managers are now taking crypto as an asset class more seriously. Indeed, one of the most famous hedge funders, Paul Tudor Jones, came out recently and said that Bitcoin specifically is a hedge against inflation. So just a little bit more knowledge and interest in it. And I was really pleased to see this article in the Times, obviously a fairly old-fashioned Stoic publication, talking about some investors that had swished some of their traditional financial services investments into Bitcoin. And I think it would be no insult to say the 2 folk in that photo are certainly not babies and not millennials. So definitely a growing recognition amongst the retail investors, and particularly the older crowd, that it's an asset class worth considering. So in terms of timing, as I mentioned, we saw some phenomenal growth in 2017 that then corrected substantially thereafter. So there were a few people that did lose out there, but since then it's been a very positive story. The initial purchases were really early adopters and fairly speculative, of course made a great return over that first year, about 1,300%. And since then, you've seen a lot more of the institutional investors coming to the table. So a lot of the content that Dacxi puts out in terms of the near-term outlook for those blue chip cryptos is very positive. There's a huge sense across the industry that we should see a 10-fold increase in Bitcoin in the next 12 to 24 months. And that is primarily driven by the increasing adoption of it as an asset class, both by institutional investors and in terms of retail. So if you follow some of our social media, you'll see every day there's more news coming out in that vein. So a couple of little examples of that adoption, which I think are important to be conscious of. You see a lot of retail businesses coming to the table. So some of the world's biggest payment industries, MasterCard has digital wallets. Visa, you can pay with crypto today via some of their collaborations with other businesses. PayPal is applying for patents in the area. eBay has said they're looking to accept it within their platform as a payment method. And also Amazon, Starbucks and Uber have come out in support. And as you can imagine, because the argument for the cryptos is they're a better, faster, cheaper way of conferring value, lots of banks and infrastructure firms are interested in it. So DTCC, which is the world's largest mover in terms of value, BlackRock, which is the world's largest asset manager by value, has got blockchain projects, as has the New York Stock Exchange, and a number of tier 1 banks again talking actively and positively about blockchain technologies. So this presentation is not intended to be a full backstory about crypto, but just to give you a sense of some of those companies that are getting involved, and that of course we anticipate will see a substantial uplift in prices, and indeed has already done so. So I want to talk about which cryptos we as a platform talk about most actively. It is a bit of a minefield. There are an awful lot of cryptos, and it's just about picking your way through that. So just a couple of slides on that. So the great news is there is a lot of market data out there. A great website is CoinMarketCap. which if you put into Google will come up very quickly. And that lists all the cryptos and how they're doing. So in not great news, there are around 5,700 cryptocurrencies today, which obviously is a truly crowded marketplace. And it's our opinion that certainly that market is well overdue for a period of consolidation, particularly on some of the more esoteric coins. So the coins that Dacxi are focused on are the coins that we refer to as the blue chip. So those are the coins that the institutional investors are showing interest in. And CoinMarketCap will give you daily traded volume. So of course it's important if you purchase crypto, whether you're buying £100 worth or £1,000 worth, which cryptos and can you get out of them at a point if you're choosing. So according to CoinMarketCap, I did this at about 10 o'clock this morning. This is the daily traded volume for the last 24 hours. So Bitcoin, £14 billion worth, Ethereum, 6 billion, and Litecoin, 1.5 billion. So for people that use our platform at the moment, they're not looking to trade, they're looking to hold. But of course, they do need to know that they can get out if and when they want to. So one of the things that needs to be looked at for any coin that you're getting involved with is its use case. So the problem it's trying to solve and the audience it will have, which is why I was trying to tell you a little bit about the Dacxi ecosystem, which I would thoroughly recommend you look into with more interest. So I think that, you know, for looking at the amount of trade that there is, those top three account for 70% of all traded volume. So just so that again, there's 5,700 and three of them are 70%. I think that tells quite a strong story. So Dacxi as a business offers two things. The first is that anyone that interacts with our platform, it looks a little bit like an online banking app. Lots of people use the blue chip bundle. So whatever you do through our platform, it's the coins held in your own account on the app. So anyone buying the bundle will receive 50% in Bitcoin, 20% in Ethereum, 10% in Litecoin, and 20% in Daccoin. And that currently has a 10% incentive. And for those people that are more focused on the coin with the maximum possible upside, the DAC pack is a pure DAC coin purchase, and that's risen about 400% over the last year. Excuse me, I'm being very croaky. Excuse me. So the two things that our platform provides, and both, as you can imagine, have proven very popular, both for our UK audience and globally. So in terms of referral program, we have lots of accountants and IFAs and financial professionals that are coming to the table. Often their client bank is coming to them and saying, look, I want to get involved, what can I do? And often they're working with Dacxi as a place to put those customers. So on the DAC pack, there's some really good referral bonuses. It's 20%, and on the bundle, it's 10. We also have master agents who recruit affiliates and earn an override. So particularly during lockdown, which we're in right now, we have a fully automated online journey. There's a link that you would have, which then obviously acknowledges any customers which are referred. So if you'd like more information about that, do get in touch with whoever pointed you at this presentation. So in terms of business and marketing support, obviously we appreciate that lots of people we're working with don't know a huge amount about crypto when they first come to see us. So we have a huge amount of support that's available. In terms of business support, of course, most importantly, there's no cost, so we don't charge anyone for working with us. We're very focused on providing lots of high quality information. To our knowledge, we're the only crypto business that has a certification program for its affiliates. So there's an online exam that you need to pass, which you can resit, of course, and it has a very high standard. So you actually have to achieve 100% in order to be able to pass, but then of course you would be a certified crypto affiliate, which is wonderful. We know that we have a relatively untapped market in the UK and Ireland with a relatively small amount of representation so far. And as I mentioned, we're doing very well during lockdown, so people can get involved from the privacy of their own homes. We do pay our referral fees on a 2-week cycle, which is automated. And we hold a lot of seminars, so whether they're webinars or in-person seminars when lockdown is eased a little bit. And we have a great community, so a lot of the forward-thinking IFAs and accountants we're working with are part of a very active WhatsApp group. We've got a lot of social media. We actually have a daily chat, so people can swap best practice and ask any questions. And we have a huge amount of interaction, whether it's through regular affiliate online sessions for access to the leaders and the experts, and also a regular Ask Me Anything session. So you can literally just dial in and pose any questions you might have about crypto or about Dacxi. So in terms of marketing support, there's a huge amount of support for people out there. We have a lot of shareable content, whether it's ebooks and our blue paper. As I mentioned, we've got our exam process and just huge amounts of information that we know is useful for people that are trying to get involved in crypto. Loads on social media. We have email campaigns, lots of webinars. We have a substantial due diligence pack for people that want to start doing a bit of homework into industry. And we also have a full-time compliance officer and someone assisting with PR. So again, all just a lot of support, which again, we don't think exists through any other exchange. So that's quite enough from me. I just want to stop sharing my screen for a moment to introduce our guest speaker. So Hugh, I've just asked you to unmute if that's okay. I just had some background noise, so hopefully you're there. Let me just stop sharing. That will give me my screen. So hi, can you hear me okay, Hugh?
Yes, I can.
Oh, very good. Okay, thank you very much. So look, Hugh has agreed to kindly give up some of his time today. So Hugh has a long career in traditional financial services. So I wanted him to talk today about his experience of crypto. So just going to be very informally asking him a couple of questions since he's very much walked the walk. So look, Hugh, can you just start off by telling us what your background is from a financial services perspective? That would be fantastic.
Sure. My background was over 20 years with the Clydesdale Bank on the international division side. I ended up in the bank with as being responsible for payments, international payments and CHAPS payments within the UK for the National Australia Group, which was our parent company. After leaving the banking world, I had a family business as a sub post office, but I also worked as a consultant with a major international engineering company, devised a global cash management strategy for them before widespread adoption of the euro.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. And just tell us how long you've been involved in crypto from a personal perspective? Since
August of last year.
Okay, very good. And what inspired you to do that? And what was sort of made you wake up and think, right, this is an industry I want to expose myself and my clients to?
I had looked at crypto about 4 years ago and decided against it. It was too scary, too many scam stories. I was introduced to Dacxi by a chap who I have known and trusted for well over 20 years. Like me, he was a franchise holder in Business Network International. And it was really because of the trust that I had in this chap, not because of any knowledge that I had, because I didn't have any knowledge, that I became involved in Dacxi, and I'm so glad that I have.
Okay, very good. And what, I know you mentioned that it was introduced by someone that you sort of was in your network already, but what homework did you do? What sort of due diligence did you sort of manage to do off your own back?
Well, I did a lot of research. The good thing about crypto is that there is a lot of information available. There's nothing that we do that can't be independently verified. So, you know, that takes time. The research that I did was very confusing at the beginning, but you eventually start to, you know, differentiate the wood from the trees. But in a general perspective, I've always believed that people often find it difficult to escape from their own set beliefs, even when the facts suggest otherwise, and the facts are readily available. I'll give you two very brief examples of what I'm talking about. There's a chap called Steve Sasson. He was an employee of Kodak, and he invented the first digital camera in 1975. This was at the time when Kodak had 2/3 of the world market in their sector. He then went on to invent the first DSLR in 1989. On both occasions, he went to the board of Kodak to suggest that this was the way to go, but the board were too tied up in the sale of films, and they said, no, we're not having this. Of course, everybody knows that Kodak went bankrupt in 2012. And the second example would be Sears, who invented the mail catalogue business in 1892. Sears Roebuck opened its first store in 1927. That was the year my father was born. And right up until Walmart surpassed it in the early 1990s, was the largest retailer in the USA. It filed for bankruptcy in 2018, and yet its original business was based on the same principle as Amazon's is today: greater choice delivered to the consumer's home. So I see a straight comparison in these examples with the advent of crypto. We're fortunate today to have participants who obviously aren't afraid to challenge their own traditionally held beliefs and take the time to research the facts that you have just described. So we all know that in accountancy, we have practitioners who are box tickers, who just prepare sets of accounts from bookkeeping records and file tax returns, and the more proactive accountants who will sit down with their clients to discuss what options might be available to them for surplus cash. And we also have IFAs that have their head in the sand, quite frankly. They can't see past the traditional vanilla opportunities. They've made a tidy living from these and can't be bothered to research beyond. They're either too lazy or too afraid. And I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that people in this category are going to be left way behind. And I can't help but wonder how many of their clients will very soon be asking them why they didn't suggest allocating just 1% of their portfolio in crypto, which is, after all, the best performing global asset bar none, and is now a legitimate regulated sector.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So look, I don't want to upset your privacy here, so I'm certainly not asking for fixed numbers. So obviously crypto has done very well this year, and you've been in since August last year. Could you just give us just a flavour of how you found crypto personally? Obviously I'm not asking you to upset your privacy, but just a hint of how you found that journey from a sort of personal point of view.
Well, when people ask me the question, okay, how much have you made from this Bitcoin rubbish? It always makes me smile, as if some kind of get-rich-quick scheme was afoot here. Everybody here knows that opportunity is all about being in the right place at the right time and getting in early. If you want to talk about the blue chips, we're now at the stage where the involvement of the world's major financial institutions, hedge fund managers, retailers, etc., is the fundamental that means that the coming boom in crypto is going to be sustainable and long term, rather than previous rises that were, quite frankly, based on predicated mainly from trading speculators, that kind of thing. You can and should do all the diligence that you can do, but the world of crypto is in line with what's happening in artificial intelligence, digital printing, self-driving cars. It's just an amazing opportunity, and these don't come around very often. Crypto, to me, in terms of the blue chips, is probably a short to medium term opportunity. I am more excited about what we're doing in the DAC coin, because that presents the real life-changing opportunities for companies at the moment. If two chaps who make friends at university get on so well with each other that they think it would be a great idea to start up in business when we graduate, they go to a bank, they laugh at them because they've got no trading experience, they've got no knowledge of their sector. So crowdfunding is the way to go. Unfortunately, we're not well placed at the moment in terms of crowdfunding because there's no diligence involved, and that is one of the aspects of Dacxi which I particularly liked, the fact that we've got 3 different levels of diligence in place so that investors can have a good level of comfort that their investment is going to prove worthwhile.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And look, thank you so much for giving your time up today, Hugh. I really appreciate it. So for those of you that are listening to this session live, Hugh, I know is going to stay on. So if you've got any questions for him directly, you can private message him in the chat, or if you just address it to all panelists, everyone will be able to see it. So thank you very much, Hugh. Much appreciated. So I've just got a couple of slides left. So from current slide, please. Excuse me. Come on between my Mac and my PowerPoint. So I just want to spend just the last minute or so talking about how you may wish to continue this conversation through crypto. So there's a huge amount of learning. Look, the purpose of this presentation is not to answer every question you may have in crypto. It's more of an introduction. We have huge amounts of content, so all of that's available very easily and free. So please do feel free to look at our website or our social media. You'll find a huge amount of information on there. We have a lot of regular online events. So if you look at the Dacxi website, we have an events page. We broadcast daily over a broad number of crypto themes. So as mentioned, there's a beginner session, an Ask Me Anything session. We run specialist sessions for IFAs, accountants in the property industry. So you're very welcome to engage with us live or on Listen Again, or of course have a chat to the person that pointed you in the direction of this presentation. It's likely they're very knowledgeable about Dacxi. So look, next steps, I am keen to further the education of anyone that's interested in the crypto space. So I wanted to make 2 opportunities available to you that are completely free and without any obligation. The first is that we have a free ebook, which is called The Crypto Boom. So if you're listening live, feel free to put your email in the chat box and I will make sure you get a copy of it. You can private message me on the chat. If you're listening on Listen Again, do ask the person that pointed you here. They'll be able to extend you the same offer. And also I want to make available to you a really exciting thing that we do called the free 1,000 coin offer. So if you're looking to get involved in crypto and have a go and see what it's all about, you can actually get a free 1,000 DAC coins from us. They'll be held in your online account as soon as you've passed AML and KYC in line with the FCA requirements, of course. So there's no obligation, there's no cost, and it means that you'll own some crypto that you can talk about and have a play with. So again, either get in touch with me, chat on live, or through the person that introduced you. And I will make both of those available to you as a thank you for attending today or for listening again on Listen Again. So this is the point of the presentation where I stop recording. So anyone that wants to ask questions on live can do so. So a huge thank you for joining me, and we hope to see